Okay. All right. The channel is live. Hello, everyone, and welcome to Adventure on So Many Levels. We're going to play some Dungeons and Dragons.
Woo!
I am Christiana Ellis, and I am going to be the dungeon master for this little adventure. But we don't have characters yet because that's what we're here to do tonight. This is session 0 for a new campaign, which will be using the Planescape Adventures in the Multiverse Turn of Fortune's Wheel adventure module. And I am excited because I've read it and I know there's some very cool stuff in it. But until we have those characters, perhaps we should introduce our players. First and foremost, I see one person who had a character designed already had changed to virtual backdrop. I did notice that. That's okay, because people have been thinking about their characters already. But so our players, first and foremost, the man I called out, Nobilis.
There.
We also have Paul Weimer,
Hi.
David Archambault,
Hello.
Lee Burdett. Muted.
Did
First of the new campaign.
Keeping the
Every
traditions
single
alive.
time.
Well, you know why that happens is because you mute yourself all the time.
Yeah, well, I mute myself all the time because right now I have a really bad cough and I don't want to cough in people's ears.
That's
so.
fair. And last but not least, at the moment, Jason Banks. Also muted.
All right, 2 for 2. Hey, everybody, what's going on?
We also are expecting Millie Katie, but she is running a little bit late this evening. But as we are now getting ready to begin session 0, I don't have everything like terribly organized and structured, but I have a general conception here that one of the first things that we're going to do is talk a little bit about Planescape and the setting that this adventure will take place in. Not because it is stuff that your characters will necessarily know, but it is an unusual setting, and I feel like it's worth talking a little bit about in ways that might inform some of the decisions you choose with your characters. And we're going to be running in Roll20, and I see people posting in chat. So yes, we're going to have a Roll20 game, and people are by and large building their character sheets in D&D Beyond. And there's a nice little extension that people might not be familiar with called Beyond 20. That is a browser extension that allows dice rolls from D&D Beyond to post into Roll20. It's really convenient. So, just maybe before we get started and I start lecture mode about what Planescape and Sigil and the Outlands are, does anybody actually have any like experience or pre-existing knowledge about this setting? Because it's certainly one that's been around in the D&D space for a while.
It showed up just about the time I was kind of fading out in 2nd edition. And going, and this was like the first round of it really indie games being created, and I was going off and playing other things. And so it was always off in this distance, like, oh yeah, they did this multiplanar setting, but it never got around to it. When 3rd edition came in, it was passe and it had kind of had its time. So that 2nd edition, I seem to skip every other edition of D&D. I'm not sure why that is, but 3rd edition came in, they never did it for 3rd edition, and then as that faded out into 4th, so it just never came up during my various intense D&D set times. So it's always been like this thing off in the distance that was curious, but never really hooked me in.
I know it from another D&D podcast called Rolling with Difficulty.
Oh yeah.
They have I think they finished up their 4th season. I don't know if they're going to go for a 5th, but they finished up their 4th season, which I haven't listened to, but I did do the previous 3 seasons, so I'll get to it. But it was really, really good. So in between sessions with us, y'all can go check out Rolling with Difficulty. It's awesome.
In the mid-90s, there was a video game, a D&D video game called Planescape Torment. You wake up in a morgue not knowing who the heck you are or what's going on, and it turns out you're in the city of Sigil, and who you are and what you are turns out to be wilder than you could possibly imagine. And I fell since I've liked multiverse ever since I read the Chronicles of Amber at age 10. It's like, oh wow, this is great. I never actually played Planescape. Oh, that's true. I've actually played it. No, I played a couple of short scenarios set in Planescape verse. But other than those, mostly my experience of Planescape comes from Planescape Torment and the story of the Nameless One.
I've heard of it, and that's about it. I can understand the general concept, but that's really it.
Well, so I was actually myself in the boat of having heard of it and knowing little bits and pieces and so on until the recent Wizards of the Coast set of books that includes the adventure that we're going to be running. But certainly finally having access to, I mean, not that I couldn't have looked up old source material, but with the new source material, reading through it, I was delighted by it, and I am looking forward to, getting into it. But so here's the short spiel on Planescape. I'm going to be reading a few things from the from the setting guide, Sigil and the Outlands. And first, it begins with, the multiverse is everything known and everything beyond. Encompassing worlds, planes, life and death, the multiverse's infinite infinities brim with wonder, terror, secrets, and above all, possibility. Every D&D adventure takes place in the multiverse. Beyond the lone worlds of the material plane are countless other realities and the paths and portals that connect every edge of eternity. Those who seek the wonders of the planes take their first step into the endless possibilities of a Planescape campaign. And so the basic idea here is that if we imagine every campaign that has ever existed is in the multiverse, and Planescape is like the hub that all of the different realities sort of rotate around. There's a little bit of Dark Tower from Stephen King's books in there. And here's just a couple of notes that are going to kind of inform the adventure. I'm not reading everything here verbatim, but backstage of reality. Planescape adventures provide glimpses of the daily lives of unfathomable beings like gods, angels, and demons, and how they act when mortals aren't their primary concern. Everywhere at once, it spans all of these different possible realities and planes and possibilities, and people can and do travel between them frequently. Adventurers are likely to see multiple impossible sights every day. Let's see. Let's see. We've got Millie was just reporting in that she is having technical difficulties in addition to her other things. Hopefully she'll be able to join. Multiversal scale. In Planescape Adventures, dangers might threaten countless worlds or the fate of the multiverse itself. No single truth. The multiverse makes room for everything, and beliefs manifest as fantastic creatures. Planescape Adventures often pit philosophies against one another and highlight subjective views. Power and possibility. They're home to beings of phenomenal power, yet the smallest things can make a difference. Stage of contradictions. In Planescape Adventures, Celestials might be evil, Fiends might be apathetic, and Yetis might sell snow cones. What you do defines you, not what others assume about you. And so that is kind of some of just the thematic touchstones here. And what I will also say is that this adventure module has some very cool maps in it, not only of the city of Sigil, but the Outlands themselves. But I'm not going to show those just now because I think it would be fun to reveal those when the actual game begins. But I did make a handout, which I'm going to share with you now in Roll20, that has a big, let's see,
Okay, I want to change my spell loadout. I want Featherfall.
Yes,
It's a long drop down to the Outlands.
I think I'm going to need to cast it
Yes.
several times.
So what we're seeing on screen for anyone who's only listening in audio is we have sort of a disc-shaped reality that has a number of cities that ring the border of it. And at the center, there is an impossibly tall spire. And floating at the very tip of that spire is a torus shape where the city of Sigil is on the inside surface of that in a ring. And so one of the things that's it is known as the City of Doors. It is run by a figure known as the Lady of Pain, and her deal is basically that she's the one that can kick gods out when they start causing trouble. And this is just basically there's so many portals coming in and out of Sigil that it's hard to keep them straight. Some of them require special keys. Some of them you happen upon by accident. Some of them require special circumstances. And they can go almost anywhere. The Outlands are basically, if in the United States, there's a region known as Four Corners where you have 4 different states all sort of meet at one point where just, you can stand in a special little spot and have part of you in 4 different states at the same time, right? Well,
Yep.
The Outlands is kind of that for all of the outer planes in the D&D cosmology, like Avernus or Elysium or, I'm trying to think of some of the other, Isgard, all of the different outer planes that have these different alignments to them, lawful and chaotic and evil and good. But what's really interesting, I think, about this is that each of these cities that we see on the ring around the perimeter here is connected to one particular outer plane. And so it is mostly like that outer plane. However, if it were to become too similar to the outer plane that it is connected to, it would simply be absorbed into that plane. So in every case, there is just enough about that city and that region that is different enough from the outer plane it's connected to that it cannot be considered part of the same thing and just get absorbed out. And this happens all the time. And that means that the Outlands are frequently changing dramatically. You might have a whole city that has, that was there for a long time, only to suddenly discover, oh, no, that's not in the Outlands anymore. It just actually became part of whatever outer plane it was connected to. And now there's something else there. And this happens all the time, constantly changing. And it's a lot of the same sorts of interactions that we described above. And so this adventure is going to be taking place both in the city of Sigil itself, but then also traveling across the Outlands. So I specifically sought out this particular piece of artwork because I think it's cool, and also because it saves the more elaborate maps that we will see for later. So, any questions at this time?
Not yet. I
Mo-
do have questions, but not
Mostly
yet.
it's just seeing that my character, trying to get in the mindset of my character.
Mm-hmm.
When he levels up a bit, he might try to jump off a sigil and
Mm-hmm.
see if he can land and survive the landing.
Um, yeah,
Like
he might find that
totally
difficult in
but yeah,
another number of respects, but I'm not going to tell you no.
yeah. I mean,
It's fine as it sounds like a fun, like
Mm,
character goal.
I mean, just like kind of get you an idea of how I'm going to try and play this character.
sure, sure. So, one of the things that the nature of this setting allows is that there are an awful lot of people from here. Could have been born in Sigil, born anywhere in the Outlands, and lived their whole lives there. But also, people come and go through here from all sorts of places all the time. So, characters can be from elsewhere and have ended up here, or they can be from somewhere here. Both of those things are allowed. But it's funny that you described the beginning of Planescape Torment, Paul, because another big piece of what we're going to be doing in this adventure, at least to start, is that all of your characters are starting with amnesia.
Wow, I can see they're definitely mining the game for at least that initial seed. Nice. I like it a lot.
Yes, and so I had, just as for transparency here, I had let the players know in advance that that was going to be the case. But here's where I think it's going to be fun for all of us to play around a little bit with meta knowledge, in the sense that it is important to the adventure that the characters themselves have dramatic amnesia. They are still able to speak. They have your various class skills, etc. You know, basic knowledge. But what you are missing is knowledge of your own past before that point, how you got there, etc. That is not to say that you, as the player, can't know at least some of that, because part of what we're going to be doing in the early part of the campaign is having your characters discover little bits and pieces of themselves in interesting ways. And this is going to be an inspiration mechanic, where periodically, when something about what's happening strikes you in a fun little way, you can just say, wait, I'm remembering something. I think I must have grown up in a house like this, or something like that. And that is a way that you can potentially get inspiration. But there's also going to be a couple of other unique elements to making your characters in this campaign, because of the, it's just, so I've touched on a few things. But one of the other things that I wanted to talk about a little bit, before we get too far down the road of building everyone's characters, are some of the unique character options that are available in this adventure. One is that we have 2 new backgrounds available for the characters, and these backgrounds come with feats. And these feats are pretty cool. These backgrounds are pretty cool, so I will describe them a little in some respects, and encourage you to take a look at those. But also, because these backgrounds come with feats attached to them, that means that anyone who chooses a background other than one of these 2 can gain a bonus feat of either tough or skilled. Not just any feat you want, but you can add tough or skilled to your character if you want to choose a background other than one of these new ones.
Okay.
So, the Gate Warden background is: you spent a significant amount of time somewhere influenced by intense planar forces, or a portal to another plane of existence, such as one of the gate towns in the Outlands. You're accustomed to experiences that would leave others reeling in terror or enraptured by otherworldly beauty, and you're as comfortable dealing with celestials and fiends as you are with the vendors in town who might be one and the same. And it has a number of different things that you might use to help you figure out what sort of personality or traits that you might have there. But you, as a feature, planar infusion. Living in a gate town or similar location steeped you in planar energy. You gain the Scion of the Outer Planes feat, which I will talk more about in a moment. The other background you can choose is planar philosopher, which is to say you subscribe to a philosophy that seeks to understand the nature of the planes or some hidden truth of the multiverse. You draw strength from your conviction and perhaps a network of like-minded thinkers, such as the factions of Sigil. And so the factions of Sigil are something that's certainly going to come into play in the adventure. These factions are ideological in nature, by and large, and so they have like very different ways. You might imagine in the city that we described, the way Sigil is, people have a lot of different opinions about how the world works and cosmology and religion and gods and all of that sort of thing. You can understand why there might be a lot of different perspectives on that. And so as part of your doing that background, the feature you get is Conviction, where you also get the Scion of the Outer Planes feat, but also members of whichever faction you kind of have aligned yourself with provide you free modest lodging and food at any of their holdings or the homes of other faction members. So let's talk a little bit about that Scion of the Outer Planes feat. Basically, if you have one of those feats, you are choosing which type of plane you would have been infused with the energy of. And depending on which, you can choose between chaotic, evil, good, lawful, or the Outlands more generically. And each of those gives you access to both a resistance from a certain type of damage, but also a specific cantrip. So, for example, if you were infused with the energy of an evil out of plane, you have necrotic resistance and you gain the chill touch cantrip. And further, it's important, that feat is interesting in and of itself, but there are additional feats for higher levels that you can only take if you have this feat to start with. For example, Baleful Scion you can do if you are 4th level and you have the Scion of the Outer Planes feat already. And Cohort of Chaos, Outlands Envoy, Planar Wanderer. And so there are and Righteous Heritor. And these are basically additional feats that you can only take if you have the Scion of the Outer Planes feat, which you get by taking one of the two backgrounds I mentioned. So, for that reason, I urge you to take a look at those backgrounds when considering your characters. There's also a couple of new spells that are part of this adventure, but we probably don't need to get too into it at that level yet, because you'll see them either show up on your list or not, depending on your character class and so on. Anyone have any questions about those?
Well, those sound really on theme.
Yeah.
I mean,
Sound like a lot of fun.
I think I could make Gate Warden work with the character I'm kind of positive, sort of maybe thinking about.
Yeah, the character I've come up with is very much not fitting with those. So decided to take the tough feat.
Okay. All right. And I mean, as mentioned, that is totally okay, because the nature of this is that you can be from pretty much anywhere. And for that matter, you won't necessarily know where you're from. But this is where I mentioned the meta knowledge again, because even if your character is missing their memories, it is okay for you to have built some level of backstory that can inform their actions, even if only subconsciously. Does that make sense? I know it's a little strange, so please, if you have any questions about it, let me know. All right.
It sounds like a bit of a, actually, challenge is the right word. It's going to be an interesting role playing experience to have this meta knowledge and infuse that into a character that doesn't start with the knowledge that we have.
Right. And so the amnesia is important to the adventure, and that will obviously become clear as we're actually playing. And as I mentioned, I'm going to encourage you to find little places here and there where your character feels a little flicker of a memory of something. And even when that happens, I would encourage you to play around with the idea that these little flickers of memories you get may not even be 100% reliable.
I'm counting on
it. Yeah, and that's fine. And so it may be that you remember something and then later you remember something else that literally doesn't match, like that it's inconsistent with the first memory you had. That's okay. It's encouraged, in fact. And part of, and you may have some thoughts on this. I had mentioned that there are 3 big questions that I want you to consider about your character. And this is not necessarily something you have to tell me the answer, but I want you to have some sense of it. Which is, 1, what was the greatest decision or turning point in your character's life? And again, I am asking the player, not the character, because the character won't remember. Right? If your character made a different decision, how might their life be different? How would they be different if they made choices based on others' expectations? Second question is, what is something your character wishes they could change about themselves? And now this is something that like it's asking about the character's feelings, but again, I'm asking the player because this might be something that they're not necessarily even consciously aware of.
Mm-hmm.
How would the best version of themselves be different? And then the last one is, what is your character's signature possession or physical trait? What makes you certain that your character would retain this no matter what could have happened in their life? And so all of these things, I want to encourage you all to think big about these. And so like the greatest decision or turning point in your life, I don't want it to be, I had a ham sandwich instead of a tuna sandwich for lunch, right? Unless you can justify to me how the entire course of their life would be different as a result. It's going to be more fun for you the more different you can imagine their life being if they had chosen differently. So those are, I think, the things that we're going to, I wanted to kind of get through to start with. As I've told you already, you're going to be making level 3 characters, not level 1. And so with that said, I know some of you have most of this stuff decided already, and that is totally okay. But it is also totally okay if you're still feeling like you're not sure what you want. Has everyone chosen a class?
Yes.
Yes.
No, you know me.
Yes.
I was like, what does everybody else need?
No,
So
you
I'm
need
curious.
to
I'm curious.
make- choose,
Mhm.
and let other people fit in around you.
Yeah.
No, pick. What do you
Yes.
really, really want to play?
I feel this listeners, this is not an act. I always feel like I have to be the team player in every game I'm ever in. So it feels a little weird.
Leaders are also team players, Paul.
Yes.
True. Okay. What I haven't played in a while, and and although it'd be a very different take, I'm kind of inspired by Yuli. I want to play a ranger this time.
Okay, nice.
So there, I guess I've gone on record of playing a ranger.
There you
All
go.
right. So who else wants to shout out their chosen class?
I'm playing a Fey devoted warlock.
All right.
Will you play yourself, or you haven't decided yet?
The character's race is tiefling.
Okay, that's an interesting cross. Okay,
but she's pink, not red. So
Oh, go ahead.
Okay, no, I was just gonna say, I'm playing a kobold artificer, which is inherently never going to go bad. This is always going to be a good decision on my part.
Our characters are going to get along just fine.
Excellent. I am already excited by the level of chaos that's being suggested.
Oh God!
Well, just to add to the chaos, I'm playing a gnome barbarian.
A gnome barbarian?
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Okay, that's not a usual combination
Excellent.
you ever see, but okay, we'll go with that. I've
That's
not decided
awesome.
on the race for my ranger. I'm kind of torn between the classic wood elf and something a little more exotic. But I've nailed that down.
I mean, it's Planescape.
Embrace the chaos.
I know it's Planescape. Why should I go with the standard? It's true.
Well, so I would certainly encourage you to think outside the box, but there's also something to be said for like the straight man, so to speak.
The straight man.
Which
I
is
do have
to
to
say
say Yes, I played the straight man in a party of chaos monkeys, and it was great.
Well, but also what I was going to go on from there to say is that you might be the one that perhaps outwardly in appearance would look the most sort of standard, default, normal, and less chaotic. That does not mean that's who you have to actually be. I believe Millie had said something about playing a bard.
Going to be a reborn wizard.
A reborn wizard.
What's a reborn?
Reborn is a basically you're not an undead, but you are like undead adjacent. You basically imagine if you were, say, you went through, say, burial rites or some sort of experiment and you died, but for some reason your soul got reattached to your perfectly preserved body and you're still technically alive. Technically.
Jason, I'm sensing a theme.
I mean, they might also be slightly religious. They might be a slight holy person. Slight, only slight.
I think Laudna from Critical Role. She's got that vibe.
Yeah, slightly less religious because I'm technically an abomination against most guys.
Well, I think Laudna in Critical Role technically is actually undead, but
She is.
But I mean that's
sure. All right, yeah, that's fun. So that was everybody, right? So we have warlock, barbarian, ranger, artificer, bard,
wizard.
All right, yeah,
We're lacking a lot of healing here, guys.
Bards can do healing.
Artificers can do
I know.
healing. Bards and artificers both.
Rangers can do healing.
Yeah.
Okay.
You don't have like a devoted healing class like a cleric, but yeah.
Having a little bit of it sprinkled around the party means you're not completely screwed if the cleric gets one-shotted.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
I mean, in our previous campaign, I played a bard and did a lot of healing, and I was also very plainsy. Xenophon was very plainsy, so I don't want to. I don't want to repeat
We'll be
that.
fine. We'll be fine.
Okay. So here's a question, Christiana.
Mm-hmm.
I am planning for Guido or Malleus to be an artificer, which means he's got an eldritch cannon.
Okay.
I would really, really like for you to allow that instead of only 2 feet, he can have 4, and that they're corgi legs.
Gee, let me think. Is that the sort of thing that I might be okay with? Yeah, I think so. I think I would allow that. Yeah.
Okay. That is absolutely what Malleus is. I have to get used to calling him Malleus now.
Well, it's that just ties into something that we had been discussing off stream, that by sheer coincidence we had a couple of characters who were getting named after a bone. And so we kind of loosely decided that it might be fun if everybody's character name was named after some bone.
Yep.
So.
Them bones.
Them bones, them bones, them.
Mm-hmm. So, in any case, I think that this is not necessarily going to be a 3-hour session, as everyone, especially with a lot of you having already decided a lot of these things. But anyone who has stuff decided, feel free to talk a little bit about it, and I obviously am here to answer questions as well.
Well, I mean, are we doing those questions that you laid out earlier? Is that kind of part of what we're doing?
I think it might be fun
to have those come out and
this is where I'm torn. So I guess I want to ask all of your opinion about that sort of thing.
Mm-hmm.
As I mentioned, when we begin the adventure, your characters not only do not know who they are, but they're not going to know who each other are, right? You will be strangers to one another in that way. Now, who knows? Maybe in these little memories that I mentioned, you will sort of feel like, I don't know who you are, but I feel like I've known you a long time. That sort of thing, right? Like you could do that if you wanted. That's in that same sort of finding memories sort of thing. But you won't necessarily know those things about each other. Do you think, as players, that it would be more fun to not know those things about the other player characters and discover them in game? Or do you think it would be more fun to kind of talk through those things as a group and then just metagame, play act the not knowing?
Maybe like everybody picks something to share, or picks 2 things to share. One is true, one is false.
That could be fun.
Yeah. Okay.
Because, let me also just say, some of the stuff that feels kind of weird, like mysterious and wobbly about the way this adventure is beginning, trust me, I know. Some of that is going to become more clear once we're a session or 2 in, as things start to happen. And so some of these conversations we can revisit at that time, when that stuff starts to, some of the pieces start to fall into place. So it is fine with me, and maybe even kind of a fun game to have some of those things be discovered in play.
It sounds to me like it's designed to have this stuff discovered in play.
It is, but I also want to be sensitive to not everybody necessarily enjoys that kind of play. And so I guess some of the mechanics that I'm sort of hinting at as being surprises, I'm leaning in that direction because I think that's fun, but I also want to say even as a safety tool sort of thing, if you really feel like you're going to have less fun not knowing and you would like me to tell you, I will, but privately. So just want everyone to know that that's on the table, but also that I think it's kind of fun to have it be a surprise.
I think I'd probably be more comfortable if I could email you what I have for
Yeah.
him, and
Oh,
you can
no.
say, yeah, this is what I had in mind.
So I absolutely, for those questions, I would like to be discussing them with each of you separately, but
Yeah.
just not collectively on the stream is my point.
Okay.
So having you each kind of work through that, and a couple of you have already reached out to me with some pieces of that. And also, like I said, we don't need the amnesia to be anything that is going to interfere with your character's mechanical function, right? Like if you're a spellcaster, you remember how to cast your spells. You might even decide you don't remember how you learned it, but you have not forgotten how to do your class stuff, right? And even like, for example, Nobilis's character as a warlock, you might sense this connection. Actually, let me think about that a little bit with the warlock, because I'm trying to just think how. Tell me a little bit about how you envision the connection with the patron to be.
Okay, so I'm just imagining that there's somewhere there is some culture that has a tooth fairy like we have, this kind of fun tradition for small children who are losing their teeth.
Mm-hmm.
And that this exists somewhere in Planescape. And child puts one of her lost teeth under her pillow and gets a copper piece the next morning.
Mm-hmm.
And then she's, out in the street somewhere and finds a picked over skeleton of some creature that got left behind and thinks, oh, here's some more teeth. And she pulls out, pulls out very carefully, picks all the teeth out of this rat skeleton, brings them home, puts them under her pillow. And in the morning, there's 4 copper pieces. And her parents are like, and she shows her parents, look, the tooth fairy brought me more money. And they're like, okay.
Oh boy.
And they're dirt poor. So that money actually comes in quite handy. And so she starts going around to every place that might have teeth, that have carcasses or whatever, butchers, etc. There's a skull, just grabbing the teeth, and every night she's got this pile of teeth that she puts under her pillow. And over time, she learns that the tooth fairy is actually got like plans for her, but it starts off as an extension of that legend.
I love all of that. That's fantastic. And it does kind of answer my question in the sense that you're not necessarily on speaking terms with your patron.
Right. This relationship evolved kind of on a kind of experimental basis. And she eventually learned that, the teeth don't have to come from dead things. And that if she gets involved in a violent confrontation and knocks someone's teeth out, those get even more rewards than just scavenged off of dead animals.
You have to
like
put some
silver
effort
pieces.
in. Yeah.
I think I love that. And I am excited to watch that function in game.
Yeah.
But it does solve the potential issue that I was wondering about, which is to say, like, some warlocks literally like to imagine the patron as just like an ever-present voice in their head, right? But in Amnesia beginning, it raises the question of, like, why can't the patron just tell them, right?
Yeah.
What would the patron know, right? And so, but it sounds like that wouldn't be an issue here because you don't necessarily have that kind of a connection.
And mechanically, what I was going to propose was that my character in game would actually refuse shares of treasure because she can only accept coins from her patron. But she ends up getting her share by, putting teeth under her pillow. So mechanically, it's the same, but there's a flavor to it.
Very fun.
So there's an enemy with nice teeth, you collect the teeth instead of the coin.
So I think that I know for a fact that you have already named your
Yes.
tiefling Fey warlock.
Yes, her name is Cuspid. She occasionally gets miss people think her name is Cupid, but it's not. It's Cuspid. And the kind of phrase that was the core of this that brought out was manic pixie nightmare girl.
Fun. All right. So who else has a little bit more that they would like to share or questions?
I have mine, and I would like to do the lie in the truth thing
Okay. Yeah.
for my
Yep.
character. So my character is named Kneecap. He is uh, uh, we can discuss why as part of conversation.
Mhm.
But the major difference that he would be if things had gone differently is that instead of a gnome, he'd be an elf. And his wish is that he would be more personable or charismatic.
All right. Gnome barbarian
No
kneecap.
barbarian kneecap. So
That's
a
a good
kneecap
name.
would be a cuspid.
Mm-hmm. And I believe that Millie was planning a bard, and I'm guessing it was a human, just based on some art she sent. But she has suggested a name of Coracoid, perhaps short Cora for short. I believe that's a bone in the shoulder.
It's not actually a bone in human shoulders.
Oh,
I looked it
interesting.
up. Humans do not have a coracoid bone.
Interesting.
They have a piece of the scapula does that function. It's in quote unquote non-therian vertebrates.
Mhm.
So
Oh, very interesting.
birds and lizards and amphibians have them, but
Malleus had originally started as a shifter druid, and his name was going to originate because he heard the voice of the forest calling, so he called himself after a bone in the ear. But after I got the inspiration to make Malleus my kobold artificer,
A little different.
yeah, it's that's one of the ear bones that you have to have in order to hear, and it's very, very much at risk with his preferred lifestyle of big bada boom. And I think that's really all you need to know about Malleus at this point.
Fantastic.
How do you spell Malleus? M-A-L-E.
Malleus.
M-A-L-L-E-U-S.
He thinks that MALL means bad, like MAL is the Latin word for bad, so he thinks Malleus means he's a badass, but that's totally not it.
Mm-hmm. Just as a total tangent, I yesterday watched the movie Naiad, which is a Netflix movie and it's nominated for a couple of Oscars. It's got Annette Bening and Jodie Foster in it. It's very good. I liked it a lot. But the reason I think of it is because it is about Diana Naiad, who's a real person, who is a marathon swimmer, and her last name being Naiad, which is a mythological water creature, is not lost on her. And in fact, she expounds on that at great length whenever she can, to the point that her friends are actively annoyed by it. So, anyway, that's all. That just made me think of that. Naiad's a good movie. People should watch it. All right. So, sorry to direct away, but yes, I love all of that. Malleus, the Kobold Artificer.
All right. I think I need to actually make a decision here. Bouncing. Okay, all right, let's go for this. Let's go into the campaign and start building.
No
fall.
pressure.
No,
Well,
I have,
the
other
I'm
thing,
all
of course,
pressure.
is
I'm
that-
all pressure.
Well, we're not actually going to be able to have our session 1 for a couple of weeks, and so
Yeah,
certainly
true.
if anyone has new ideas that excite
Paul.
them more, we can certainly.
I have a
Yes?
suggestion for your character's name.
Oh, I had a tentative idea, but go ahead.
Tarsus.
Oh, I think we discussed this before, and that was one of my choices.
If you were
Yes,
going to take a
Tarsus.
ranger, then a footbone would be. And I was looking over them, and Tarsus is a pretty nice naming
Tarsus.
kind of word. But what did you think?
I was thinking maybe like I was on the other side of the body. I was thinking we've talked about Tarsus before. I was also thinking clavicle, clav for short.
Okay.
But Tarsus, I think Tarsus works better. All right, Tarsus. Let's. How are we gonna do this?
Tarsus spelled with an I or a U?
You.
Mhm.
Okay, good. I had it right.
Is anyone taking one of the new backgrounds that I mentioned?
I intend to. Yes.
Okay.
The thing that's fulminating in my brain kind of works very well with being a planar warden.
There's Gate Warden and Planar
Gate Warden.
Philosopher.
Game warden. Yeah, I mixed the two together.
Yeah.
Great.
I would be happy also to talk a little bit more about the different factions of Sigil, if that helps anyone for thinking about the Planar Philosopher one. Because the factions will probably come up in the adventure, whether people are sympathetic to any specific one or not.
My character was too low class for a lot of that stuff, probably.
Well, there's a lot of these factions that kind of take all comers, and there's also a lot of minor factions, but that doesn't change necessarily what you're saying.
Kneecap is like, what? What?
Malleus is all for finding like-minded individuals to admire the explosive potential of random household items.
Well, there's a faction called the Mind's Eye, which says the multiverse exists to be explored. It shapes us, and we shape it in turn.
Yes, through the power of explosions.
Big bada boom.
Well, that makes me think there's another one called the Hands of Havoc. Those who try to impose a single order on the multiverse are doomed to fail.
Because of explosions.
I just did a little quick Google search. There is, in fact, a sculptor whose medium is explosives.
No.
The monument to Crazy Horse is currently being carved with very strategic placements of dynamite. So
Very
That's true, too.
slowly. Very
yeah,
slowly.
it's very slow going, but it is very worthwhile and it's absolutely gorgeous. I encourage anyone, if you have the opportunity, to go see Crazy Horse.
I mean, where my brain went regarding explosions and sculpting things, it's like creepers and the pits they
Also,
wonder why I
Lichtenberg
have
figures. Lichtenberg figures with the what was it? The glass, and then you polarize it. And you
Yeah.
stick a pin in it and go,
So, Jason, we haven't heard from you in a little bit. How's it coming?
It's going good.
Yeah?
Yes. So my character's name will be Reese Gregor.
Okay.
He is old.
Is Reese a bone, or were you not necessarily wanting to go along with that? You don't have to. It is kind of fun if everyone's doing it, but I don't want to pressure you on that.
yeah, we could always have a Kevin.
I mean, like a bone that I've heard suggested is a sternum or rib. Yeah,
So what do we have? What bones do we have so far? I know we have
Malleus, tarsus, cuspid, kneecap, coracoid.
Let's see.
What class was your character
Purple.
again?
A
Well,
wizard.
so it was actually mentioned in the chat as kind of a joke, but humorous with Reese, not humorous as Russ as a nickname. Just looking at lists of bone names.
So
As you do.
since I'm a wizard and I cast spells, his name will be, actually I'll switch it around. His name will be Radius Reese, which is a thinned bone of the forearm.
There you go. Nice.
Casting these, these spells and such.
20-foot radius.
Does he have a sister named Elna?
No. Oh God. I like this idea of memories from that we talked about with the like past characters. You know what I'm saying? Like that sort of thing. Which is why originally his last name was going to be Gregor, seeing as the first character I played in this with you guys was Rowan Gregor. Was my ranger.
Right.
But I was gonna make this guy an ancestor of him because this guy was old. I want him to be old. Like he was brought back and has been basically researching religious things for the time he's been alive and magic. But because he's basically a Frankenstein. Frankenstein's monster anyway.
One of the factions is the Heralds of Dust, which says everyone is already dead. The entirety of the multiverse is an afterlife. Undeath holds the key to the next stage of existence.
Right, and the reason why he's an issue is because he thought he was going on to the next place of existence, and then wakes up back in his original body.
I just imagine sitting up and it's like, what?
Wait, this is the afterlife?
I've been robbed.
It's like the end of the Wizard of Oz. Wait, this is the afterlife? But you were in my regular life, and you were there, and you were there. They're like, no,
You know
no,
what?
no.
You know what? We can fix that with enough explosions.
What can't we?
There's another faction that Malleus might enjoy. Lee, is called the Transcendent Order, and their beliefs are thought clouds action. To fall in step with the multiverse, one must act on instinct alone.
Oh yeah, those guys are real popular.
Well, see, here's the thing though, is that Malleus is actually very, very intelligent.
Okay, yeah.
So-
well, an artificer,
so
I suppose it makes sense. You have to have some planning.
Yeah. So he's more in line with the strategic application to get the most bang for your buck.
There's also the Society of Sensation. Sensation is the proof of existence. By experiencing everything, we can understand the multiverse in all its complexity. Might as well just read all of them now.
Yeah.
So let's see. So there's the Athar. Deities are frauds and merely channel the might of a true higher power. The Bleak Cabal. There is no greater truth to the multiverse. Each being must discover their own meaning. The Doom Guard. Nothing lasts forever. The purpose of everything is to crumble and decay. The Fated. Everyone makes their own fate and is entitled to whatever they can take and hold. The Fraternity of Order. All of existence is governed by laws, and power comes from understanding and exploiting them. The Hands of Havoc, I mentioned before. Those who try to impose a single order on the multiverse are doomed to fail. The Harmonium. The multiverse will be perfect only when everything is acting in harmony, whether it wants to or not. The Heralds of Dust, which is everyone is already dead. The Mercy Killers. Cold, relentless justice is absolute, and no one is above it. The Mind's Eye. The multiverse exists to be explored. It shapes us, and we shape it in turn. The Society of Sensation, which I just read. And then the Transcendent Order, which is the thought cloud's action. To fall in step with the multiverse, one must act on instinct alone. And obviously there's more to all of those, but that's the quick highlight. And here on the stream, we've got Nobilis has already got a hero forge of Cuspid.
Nice.
Lovely. And pink.
Yes, her favorite weapons are hammers, that for obvious reasons, and the heads are kind of painted a kind of bone white, um, uh, because it's an iconic thing.
Nice. No pliers.
She's got some tools. I was looking at the various different toolkits, and it's like, which one would have pliers and but these tools are just kind of like, the
Sure.
the most useful toolkit for. I mean, I did a character whose thing was something other than thieves tools. I figure I can hold on to this for a time.
Well, we don't have a rogue in the party yet, so it doesn't hurt to have someone who does thieves tools.
Yeah.
I mean, you can't always let the little barbarian try and bash down the door.
I mean, or you could.
Well, yeah.
Yeah. You can do any of those things.
Oh, I question about the character since we're starting at level 3. Anything money-wise for being beyond level 3? No? Okay.
Not in this instance. It is a reasonable question. However, the answer is no. And the reason is you don't know.
Okay.
Like your characters are going to show up in a place they don't understand or know how they got there or what.
It could just be that however we got there resulted in everything extra being taken away. Which that makes a lot of sense. And if you don't remember, do you really?
Exactly. You won't even know that it was gone.
Yeah.
So, I think if people have more questions, I'm certainly here to answer any of them, but also we don't necessarily need to sit here until we think of some. Are people feeling like they've got kind of a sense of who their character is?
Yes, I'm just tweaking Tarsus now.
Okay. The nature of this adventure is such that some of the normal things that I would want to do in a session 0 don't apply here because your characters won't remember stuff. So, because often as a general sense, I often think it's good for a party to already know each other rather than having them meet as strangers at the beginning. But the nature of this particular story requires it.
Yeah. Well, I mean, given that our names have a theme, I am because I figure we remember our names. Once we share that and note that, then the question is going to be, okay, did fate bring us together and it's got a sense of humor, or did we pick our names and we all knew each other before? What's going on here? And that being like a question that we're going after as time goes on. So I think it's actually kind of interesting to add that dimension to it.
Yeah, no, I that is exactly the sort of thing that I think will be fun to explore.
Was I correct in hearing that if we didn't take one of the planar backgrounds, we got the toughness feat?
You can choose tough or skilled. Yeah.
Okay.
And because it fits so well with the barbarian, I took tough.
Sure.
Same.
I believe tough just gives you a boost to constitution and some extra.
Level.
Yeah.
It just gives it 2 hit points per level.
More hit points.
Which, for the eventual leap from the...
Who doesn't like hit points?
For the eventual leap from Sigil.
Yeah.
And falling damage is non-magical bludgeoning, so rage,
Yeah. Although certainly the nature of this place is such that I don't know that you can count on terminal velocity being what you're used to.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it, but it will be the thing going in the back of his mind
Sure.
every time he sees it.
Well, see, in the drawing there,
Mm-hmm.
there's this kind of slope as it gets down toward the bottom.
Yeah.
So
Well,
if
I
you're
Well-
falling down the
from the-
side,
So-
you might very well find yourself kind of scooted along and then skipping across that lake
So
like a rock.
let me add something that related to. So this drawing that we're looking at here is not to scale. It is not meant to be representative in that way. The spire, if anything, is taller than that. It is the sort of thing where the spire basically just reaches impossibly into the sky, and you cannot see Sigil at the top of it from the ground.
Just makes him want to do it more.
Yeah, it's like that. What's his face who jumped from orbit?
Yeah.
Well, I guess he wasn't
I don't
actually in
remember.
orbit. He was just from the top
Yeah, it
of
was
some layer of the atmosphere. or
Super
something.
high
Yeah.
altitude.
I was very high. I'm not saying I'm not
Yeah.
impressed. I'm just saying it wasn't orbit. It was
From what I remember, it was high enough that you could see the curvature of the Earth.
yeah. It was
So-
some layer of the atmosphere was the line. I think.
Oh, and it's kind of funny that that's where my mind went because I am very afraid of heights. So yeah, it just
Well, of all the things to be afraid of, heights is not the most irrational.
yeah.
I mean,
yeah. And yeah, I'm pretty sure I have some idea of the root of it, but that's that's a story for elsewhere.
Sure. Does anyone else have any questions, or do we want to, we could touch on what backgrounds you're choosing, whether it's one of the newer ones or some other one.
I want to tell you about my character.
Okay, please do.
Okay, cool.
Okay, so I decided not to be quite as straight as I might have been.
All
I'm
right.
kind of inspired by another character in another campaign, but Tarsus is a Warforged Ranger.
Nice.
Nice.
My vision, he doesn't remember, of course. My vision is he was set as kind of a gate guard, protector sort of type. And
Mhm.
for reasons I don't know, he's woke up with the rest of this crew somehow. But
Mm-hmm.
yeah, I'm thinking of him as kind of like a Horizon Walker type of ranger,
Nice.
This is the guy who's going to be launching arrows into combat.
Do we have to worry about center of mass for him?
Well, that was
I'm not Jason. I don't know if I can.
Well, that was the sharpshooter feat.
Yeah,
That was
sharpshooter.
where that came
Yeah.
into play,
Yeah,
right?
if I get that feat, then maybe we have to talk about center man. But I'm a warforged. I'm a construct. I will compute the best probabilities.
He has aimbot.
I've never played a
Okay.
warforged before, so here we
All
are.
right. Well, so one of the other things
A
too.
Warforged and an artificer in the same party. That'll be
Yeah.
interesting.
One of the things that I wanted to touch on that came to mind earlier, but we were talking about a couple of different things back then, which is to just say, I think to some extent, you don't necessarily need to worry about party balance as much as sometimes you would, because we're going to have 6 players. So I think by and large, that's on the larger side for how these adventure modules are written. And so it is not a guarantee that you're always going to be fine in combat, of course, but I just mean that by and large, I think the average encounter is going to be a bit easier for a party of 6 than it would be otherwise. Shoot, there was some other... Oh, this is just kind of a logistics question. But the nature of the sort of multiverse adventure here, you know what? Never mind. I was going to go into something that's better probably discussed off stream, which is just to say it's not really on-camera stuff. It's just planning stuff.
Okay.
Okay, so.
Oh, here's a question
Mhm, yeah.
for and to be thinking about. Are we going to do anything special for crits?
Oh, well,
Oh, yeah,
it's
what's
a
up?
valid question. We certainly had some exciting things happen as a result of my crit house rule in the Rime of Frost Maiden campaign.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I kind of like that. It certainly makes those things be a little swingy, but I guess I would ask if y'all like that rule, and if so, maybe we do it again.
I'm okay with it.
I see
Yeah.
some hemming and hawing faces from Nobilis.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not using a bow this go around, so y'all can start again.
Well, technically, it was
on
the
the
laser
bows.
rifle that
Yeah.
did the
Yeah.
thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think if we're not having weapons that are doing big numbers of dice, where maximizing it is going to have a huge impact. Because when you've got a weapon where you're rolling 4 or 5 or 6 dice, the
Mhm.
bell curve on that gets really sharp.
Yeah.
So
Well, like a rogue with
chances of
sneak
getting-
attack, for example, would yeah.
right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So well, I mean, but
Well, so
as
bearing
you
in
pointed out,
mind,
we don't have them.
even with the house rule, if people are curious, my house rule in the Rime of Frost Maiden campaign was that rather than simply rolling the dice twice, you roll them once, but also you add to it the max for the second die roll. And so what that does is the max that you could possibly get isn't any different, but it guarantees that the crit will the resulting damage will be in the upper half of what the normal crit range would be.
Yeah, yeah, and it significantly shifts that
Yeah.
average.
Yeah, I
higher.
like it just because I find it so annoying when you roll a crit and you're super excited, and then just because of the way the dice rolled, the crit damage is less than a normal hit. That just such a drag. to
How
me.
about this as a compromise? Because it does bother me a little bit that because it changes things so dramatically. Is that if you roll less than the max damage for a non-crit,
Mhm.
then you get max damage for a non-crit. So let's say your damage die is a D8. Okay.
Oh, I see. So instead of saying 8 plus another d8, you would say if you roll 2d8 and it's less than 8, you get 8.
Yeah.
I like that.
That's it. That's pretty fair.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Does
I
make
can do
it
that.
does make a crit definitely special.
And of course, as would have been the case otherwise, this applies for enemy crits as well.
So reiterate that rule. I'm writing this down.
Okay. So if you're rolling damage for a crit and you roll less than the max damage for a non-crit of the same dice,
Right.
you get the max damage for the non-crit.
Mhm.
Yeah.
So if
So-
you roll,
okay.
so if you're rolling 2d8 and you get less than 8, then it becomes an 8. If you're rolling 2d10 and you roll less than 10,
You get a 10.
you get a 10.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Rolling
Yeah.
4d10.
Yeah, I like that. I think that's fair because you still have a chance to get the highest value, but then you're at least guaranteeing that you won't get below half.
Yeah. Roll a crit
Right.
and get a 2.
Yeah.
It
Yeah.
guarantees that a crit is always at least a good hit. And
Okay,
and
yeah.
not something where like you roll double ones and it feels like a waste. All right, cool. Yeah, no, I think
Okay.
that works.
So say we all.
Mhm.
So say we all.
Yep.
All right.
Yep.
It still shifts the average a little bit, but not by nearly as much.
Yeah.
And
Well, it
I
becomes
mean,
a little bit like the reliable talent that rogues can get.
yeah,
Where it's just like, you treat every die roll, for reliable talent, it's, for those specific skills, every time you roll less than 10, you treat it like it was a 10.
Yeah. Which is really interesting. My rogue character, she has a minimum stealth of 22.
That's reliable.
Yep.
Okay, great. So does anyone else have any other questions? Bearing in mind, of course, that if you think of some later, we'll have a couple of weeks to,
No,
you can
I
reach out
think
to
I've
me.
got everything straightened out for my character.
Okay.
Yeah. And we'll need to email you tokens and stuff.
Yeah.
And so I think you should actually be able to upload them into Roll20 yourself, but if you can't figure that out for any reason, I can also do it. It's fine. Yeah, so I think then we will leave it here for now. Just as a programming note, there will be no stream next week. I will be out of town. The following week, I believe we have someone else who's missing, right? On the 9th?
I will be missing on the 9th.
Okay. But we will have everyone on the 16th. Obviously, we
Yes.
have
Yes,
confirmed
yes,
with
yes.
Millie as well. But okay, so the plan then is that we will begin the campaign on the 16th because we want to begin with everybody. But we'll figure out maybe something else to do on the 9th. We'll talk about it and see. But in the meantime, though, we will leave it there for now. And we will be back for more adventure on so many levels.
So many
many
levels.
So many levels.
New campaign.